Let's continue now to really very violent search back, I suppose, really to what I suppose properly to know about, to the late medieval, early modern England. And Yasmin Godal asks as follows, or rather she begins with a statement. Almost every historian out there says that Edward IV, that is the king of the House of York, who reigns after dethroning Henry VI of the House of Lancaster. He reigns in the 1460s and 70s through to his premature death in 1483. Out there says that Edward IV's refusal for Clarence, that's his elder brother, George, Duke of Clarence, to marry Mary of Burgundy, prompted a strong reaction from Clarence, leaving him to leave court, etc. But, so that's a statement, all historians, she says, claim that Edward's refusal for Clarence to marry Mary of Burgundy prompted a strong reaction from Clarence, leading him to leave court and to resume his quarrels with his brother. Now, by the way, a quick fill-in. This, of course, is Shakespeare's false, fleeting, perjured Clarence. Those are the words that come to Clarence himself in Shakespeare as he has a dream, which is a premonition of his own death. He is the elder brother, the next oldest brother to Edward IV, the middle son, the middle surviving son, that is to say, of Richard, Duke of York, killed at the Battle of Wakefield and by the forces of Henry, largely forces of Henry VI, wife Margaret of Anjou, and his head is placed on the gates of York, crowned with a paper crown, and his three sons, Edward, who eventually seizes the throne, Clarence, George, Duke of Clarence, who is made Duke of Clarence, and the youngest of the three brothers, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. And Clarence, of course, has this extraordinary record, as false, fleeting, perjured Clarence would suggest, of ducking in and out of loyalty to his brother. He, in the readaptation crisis of 1569, he first turns against his brother. He joins in with the Earl of Warwick, who is a man who largely put Edward IV on the throne. But Warwick, profoundly dissatisfied by Edward IV's foreign policy, and particularly his decision not to marry a French princess, but to marry a Lancastrian widow, Elizabeth Woodville, turns against him, and in one of these extraordinary renversements d'alliance, one of these kind of diplomatic upheavals within the English politics of the Wars of the Roses, you get the extremes allying. So Warwick allies with Queen Margaret in an attempt to restore Henry VI, whom he'd actually dethroned, and the attempt is successful, or briefly successful, and one of the reasons for its success is that Clarence, the king's younger brother, joins in the rebellion against Edward himself. But Edward comes back, and three guesses what, Clarence swaps sides again, and his swapping sides from the Lancastrian to the Yorkist is one of the key reasons for Edward's series of what become utterly crushing victories, particularly the great victory of Tewkesbury, at which virtually every surviving member of the House of Lancaster is either killed on the battlefield or murdered right up to the steps of the altar of the abbey. Afterwards, it becomes actually kind of blood massacre. Anyway, this is Clarence and his extraordinarily complex relations with his brother. And now left off Yasmin's question. Let me just finish. She says, everybody says that Clarence's refusal for Clarence to marry Mary of Burgundy. Now, who is Mary of Burgundy? Mary of Burgundy is the daughter and heiress of Charles the Bold, Duke of Burgundy. And Burgundy is, it's kind of what promised to be the third great power of Europe between what we now call Germany, which then the Holy Roman Empire, and France. It's the fusion of modern Belgium, the modern Netherlands, significant chunks of Western Germany, and significant larger chunks actually, of Western France, and it's ruled by a branch of the French royal house, the Valois Dukes of Burgundy. And in the 15th century, the late 14th and the 15th century, it promises to be one of the great powers of Europe. And its last duke is Charles the Bold, who enters a life and death struggle with the French king Louis XI, and he loses, and he is defeated at the Battle of Nancy in 1477 at the beginning. In fact, I think it's on the Feast of Epiphany, isn't it? Right at the beginning. No, I probably got that wrong. My memory is slipping at that point. He's defeated in 1477 at the Battle of Nancy by Swiss mercenaries, and his heir is Mary of Burgundy. And his widow, that's his second wife, this is Charles's widow, is Edward IV's sister, who is Margaret of York, Duchess of Burgundy. And in the circumstances of 1477, there is a serious proposal made by the Archduchess Margaret. She wouldn't. She would have been Dowager Duchess of Burgundy. I'm confusing the fact that when Burgundy is actually fused with Austria, the title of Archduke is reserved for the princes of the House of Austria. I'm sorry about that. The Archduchess. Let's get this right. The Dowager Duchess Margaret was very keen to continue to cement relations between England and Mary. And of course, Mary, the heiress of Burgundy, is a young woman. She desperately needs, as it were, to put it in the simplest terms, a man, a powerful ruler, to protect her against the threat of the complete destruction of the duchy by the French. And so there is, all historians, Yasmin notes, say there is this proposal for Clarence, whose wife had just died. His wife, Isabel, the daughter of the Earl of Warwick, had just died. He's still a young man. He's only 27. He obviously needs to marry again, and this seemed an appropriately glittering marriage for him. But his brother, Edward IV, who is very aware of the fact that Clarence was false, fleeting, and perjured, was determined that he should not become a rival great European prince, so the match is scotched. Yasmin is very sceptical of this. She wonders where everybody has got it from, and she goes like this. She says, but the mere idea that Clarence felt strongly about his brother's rejection of his marriage to Mary of Burgundy, let alone knew about it, does not appear substantiated by any source that I have read. Am I missing something? Well, I think the short answer is yes, you are. And you are missing one of the most extraordinary sources of the whole of the 15th century, in particular this last vexed period of the reign of Edward IV. That's the period exactly from 1477, the period after the death of Charles the Bold, up to 1486. Very short period. And the reason that all historians write about the fact that the project of marrying Clarence to Mary of Burgundy took place, and that Clarence was very resentful about it, and that it plays a part in the final breakdown of relations between Edward and Clarence, and indeed in Clarence's judicial murder, which follows the following year in 1478. The reason that historians say it is because there is a source which says it. And I'm afraid this is the source that you have missed. Am I missing something, Yasmin? It is this extraordinary source. It is the only time in 15th century England that you get an English writer writing with the sophistication, the shrewdness, the complexity of reference and political judgment of, say, the historians particularly and writers of Italy at this point. The terrible tragedy is we don't actually know who he was. He's known as the Croyland or Crowland continuator. Croyland, C-R-O-Y-L-A-N-D, is the name of an abbey in Lincolnshire, in South Lincolnshire, a little bit to the north and to the, let me get my senses of direction right, to the north and to the east of Peterborough, in the heart of the Fenland. The place is now known as Crowland, C-R-O-W-L-A-N-D, and a considerable part of the abbey ruins survive. The thing that's important is that the abbey, which is founded under the Anglo-Saxons, I think it's 655 or something, very, very early, continues, of course, right through to the dissolution, and it keeps a chronicle. Mostly the chronicle is as boring and tedious and self-focused as most monastic chroniclers. And then, for reasons we don't fully understand, somebody really important, somebody really clever, sophisticated, who writes new, elegant Latin, comes and stays in the monastery, and in a few crucial months of the reign of I think largely of Henry VII, the very beginning of Henry VII's reign, and he writes a kind of as a satirical continuation of the Abbey Chronicle. He writes a chronicle of things that really matter. So on the one hand, he sends up, disputes over a ditch with a local landowner, the kind of thing that fills Abbey Chronicles, and then juxtaposes it with this astonishing sort of Sunday Times insight column onto the politics of the Yorkist, the Ricardian, the court of Richard, the court and government of Richard III, and particularly the court of Henry, the court and government and parliament of Henry VII. And I've become very excited by this chap called the Crowland or Croyland continuator, because of what he tells us about the first parliament of Henry VII, and he shows the profound doubts of the political nation about Henry VII, about his urge to claim the throne by conquest, about the sense of the outrageousness of his behaviour in claiming to have been king before Bosworth, which means that everybody who fought against him was by definition a traitor, in his eagerness to seize the throne in his own right, rather than by a kind of compact with the Yorkists as represented by his marriage to Elizabeth of York. So you get the real sense of the, which you get from no other source, of the actual debates within the heart of the political nation, the political establishment, at the beginning of Henry VII's reign. And it's exactly the same for the beginning of the continuation, which, Yasmin, I'm sorry to say, from your point of view, says very, very clearly that the beginning of the final breakdown between Edward IV and his brother George, Duke of Clarence, was exactly over the marriage or the scheme, Margaret of Burgundy's scheme, Margaret of York's scheme, Margaret Duchess of Burgundy's scheme, to marry her stepdaughter Mary to Clarence. And she says quite specifically, this is the beginning of the breakdown. And then he goes down, then he continues, he describes the wonderful sense of the tittle-tattle as the intimate servants of the two brothers, just like modern Westminster gossip, the intimate servants of the two brothers. They leak what each really says about the other, so both sides know how much they actually hate each other. And the thing escalates viciously until that extraordinary moment, and again documented by the Croyland chronicler, who is clearly there, and with the king mounting a trial in Parliament of his own brother, with the king acting as prosecution counsel, and the only person the chronicler says actually speaking against Clarence, and the only person allowed to speak for Clarence is Clarence himself. This sight of literally fratricidal struggle, a literally fratricidal trial, and the confusion of the role of where witnesses were they prosecuting counsel, and you get the sense of the intense distaste and shock of the Croyland chronicler for this, and his sense that this represents, and I think clearly begins, that this represents a sudden turning of the screw in the horrible politics of mid-15th century England. And he presents again with an extraordinary sense of drama the final bloodbath of the reign of Richard III and its resolution at Bosworth and the accession of Henry VII as the culmination and the natural development of that unnatural struggle between Edward IV and Clarence. So, Yasmin, please, you have missed something. Please, you're interested in sources, which is wonderful. Please read the Croyland Continuator. Please, it's readily available in good translation. Please get a sense of that extraordinary inside account of the politics, which reveals what an intensely civilized, responsible man feels about uncivilized and unresponsible times and the intolerable behavior of men in power. Does it ring any bells? Hello, and thank you for watching David Starkey Talks. If, as I very much hope, you're enjoying them, why not become more actively involved and join my members club? As a member, you'll be able to take part in the members-only weekly question and answer session, suggest topics for forthcoming videos, and have priority booking for my forthcoming live events. And while you're at it, why not have a look at the store page on my website, davidstarkey.com. There you can purchase t-shirts and other merchandise, buy signed copies of my books, and, if you're feeling brave and a bit flush, even arrange to take me out to lunch. Thank you once again for watching. I look forward to hearing from you and to welcoming you to my members club.